We'll be right back with more of The Left and Right Show here on WNJC 1360 AM.
Isolation complete.
All right, and that means we're back here at The Left and Right Show on WNJC 1360 AM with your host,
Zacharias.
And Robert Smith. And right now we have special guest Jeffrey Reddick. How you doing tonight, Jeffrey?
I'm doing all right. I'm doing well. I just had a birthday celebration, so I just got back from that. So,
yes,
you guys are topping off my celebration weekend.
There you go. I just did see it was your birthday the other day. Definitely wish you a happy birthday. And I guess I was telling you off air that actually on your birthday, we were driving behind one of the trucks seen in one of the movies you've done with the logs on it. It was really creepy, actually.
Yes. Yeah, no, I get pictures pretty much every day from somebody behind a log truck cursing me for the opening of Final Destination 2. So I always just say thank you very much. But hopefully it saves people's lives. Hopefully, some people have moved and have avoided an accident.
So before we touch on the Final Destination, because there's plenty to talk about there, tell us a little bit more about some of the work other than Final Destination that you've done.
Okay. Really, that's the only thing I like to talk. No, I'm totally kidding. I've had a lot of projects that have been picked up in option, but the ones that have actually been made into movies were a TV movie called Return to Cabin by the Lake that had Judd Nelson in it, and it was written many moons ago. And it's kind of funny because this actress Claudette Mink was in it, and she was also in Tamra, a movie that I did for Lionsgate. So very small world. Some of these people keep popping up in multiple films, and that movie had Jenna Dewan in it, and Chad Faust, and was kind of a really fun little homage to Carrie that a friend of mine, Jeremy Half, directed. And and I also did a remake of Day of the Dead, which I know people, first of all, love remakes. They think they're awesome. That's total sarcasm. And they love it when you make a remake of a classic film, and then they love it when the film turns out to be nothing like the original film. So I always start with the Day of the Dead remake by saying that the treatment that I got hired to write was a lot different than the film that they ended up making.
And I do have to say, though, you had some great characters in it, because I was always a big fan of the American Pie films, and to see her out of her element and just totally kicking ass was awesome.
That was Mina Savari, right?
The funny thing is, it's been great. The funny thing is, it's a fun zombie movie on its own, and it's kind of, it's always a process when you're writing, and I talk a lot because they're holed up in our apartments by ourselves, and so we don't really have human interaction much. So if I'm talking too much, you guys can just be like, okay, slow down there, brother. But it was great. It's a great, fun zombie movie on its own. However, I just wish it wasn't called Day of the Dead, because it started off as really being a remake, and it evolved into something else. But her character and Sam Stark and Nick Cannon were supposed to be reservists. And it was really fun to watch them kick butt in the movie, but the producers made me take out the fact that they were reservists, so it made it seem like they were actual military, so they all look very baby-faced to be in the military. But, Mina was, I was really fortunate enough to go down to Bulgaria, of all places, where they shot that film.
Oh, wow.
And be on set. And, I got to work with Steve Miner, so, that in itself was worth it. One of doing a remake, but Mina was great. They were all great. The whole cast was great. The only person I missed was Ving Rhames, because he shot when I wasn't there, so I didn't get a chance to meet him. But everybody else was just completely wonderful in the film. Behind the scenes and on screen, I thought they all did a great job.
Cool. Now, I didn't know you made this movie directly, but I was walking down my local movie store the other day, and I saw this film, Tamara.
Yeah.
I have to say it was probably one of the most interesting movies that I've seen in recent years, because you don't usually see, the girl is the hack and slash killer.
Right.
It was a difference in the movie genre recently.
Yeah. No, it's the thing is, I've always, and I think it's because my mother was I grew up in Eastern Kentucky, so my mother was this really strong, farm-bred woman, but she was just very tough woman, and my sister can whip my butt too. So I've always just written strong women in my horror films, and And again, I love Carrie. I just, when I first watched it, I never appreciated it when I was younger for the story. I just liked her killing everybody at the end of it. So I've always been like, I'd like to do something like Carrie, but where she kills people a lot earlier. So that's where the kind of idea for Carrie came from. And I wanted to write a fun movie. Like, I've had so many people saying, write something like Final Destination. And there was a lot of pressure to try to write, like, kind of a super high concept, something like really that hadn't been done before. Even though I heard there was kind of a Twilight Zone episode that was kind of like that. But I think there was an actual death guy that showed up. So I wanted to write something fun. And, I was like, I love Carrie. I love the idea of these kids doing something and kind of this really dowdy, picked upon girl coming back as this really, hot vixen who knows all their secrets. And she kind of makes them kill with themselves and each other, is what ends up happening. Like, she doesn't really, it's more psychological. So that was a fun movie to write.
Very cool. And now, what were some of the other films that I guess people lesser know you as?
I think probably Tamra and Return to Cabin by the Lake are the ones that people really don't know about. Because Return to Cabin by the Lake is a TV movie, and Tamra came out, direct-to-video. One of the production companies involved, they got a super limited release for a couple of weeks in some theaters, but just a handful. So a lot of people don't know about that. Just an interesting, it's a little plug, but I'm actually writing my first ebook with a writing partner, and it's going to be, it's based off the original Tamra draft. So the movie, even though there's some blood in it, it's kind of a PG movie, when the script was kind of a really hard R movie, so I wanted to write that story and get it out there, because a lot of people do really connect with the story, and so I wanted to kind of get the unabridged version out there. So we're finishing up an ebook right now that we're going to announce, well, I guess I just did. We're going to announce officially next week online. But but I think Tamra and Return to the Cabin by the Lake are the lesser known movies that I've written. I mean, I've written a lot of films that haven't been produced yet. So there are many scripts floating around out there that haven't been produced, and there's a couple of them that are in the early stages of getting produced now that I'm really excited about, that have been announced recently. There's like three in particular where I should just mention, because they're kind of moving. And one is called Dead Awake. It's about sleep paralysis. And it's producer James Lamar and Incendiary Pictures. And they're producing it with this director, Philip Guzman, who's really awesome. And then I'm working on a project called The Undertakers. It's kind of a young adult Goonies meets The Walking Dead kind of story that's based on a young adult book.
That would be awesome.
It's really awesome. We've got people I would tell people just to Facebook me or Twitter follow me. I don't do a lot of twittering, but but we have a really great talent attached at this point, and there's a pretty big agency that's pushing it really hard right now, and that's with Modern Cine and Andrew Vandenhouten. He has produced a lot of great indie films. He did a lot of Jack Ketchum stuff. The Girl Next Door. He works with Chris Severson and Lucky McKee, and they do a lot of great indie horror films that are really cutting edge. And then I'm working on this project called Superstition with this company called Global Renaissance Entertainment, and it's going to be a trilogy with mostly African American and Latino kind of superstition. And so we're going to kind of create a trilogy. We're almost doing like the Marvel version of Avengers, but for horror, where each of the movies is going to connect, and some of them are based on existing properties and one's an original script that we're going to kind of connect together, and then they can all culminate in this final film. But they can each be done as separate spin-offs as well. So we've got pretty high ambitions for that one as well.
Oh, that would be awesome.
Now, I heard
those are percolating right now, and really close to happening. So they're definitely at the stage where I could talk about them.
Now, I heard you mention that you intend for them to be a trilogy. It's going to bring me to my first Final Destination question, and I have to ask this. When you wrote Final Destination, did you have that feeling this is going to spawn, what it ultimately did, 6 films in 9 years? That's pretty remarkable. I mean, just to create a franchise that can produce that much material, did you have that knowing feeling when you finished, when the first one was green lighted or bought? How did that come about?
Well, you always hope that it does. I actually worked at the studio that produced it. I worked at New Line Cinema. I worked there for 11 years, actually. And, you always think if you work somewhere, you're going to have a kind of a special in. And I've been there long enough to know that you still have to stack the deck in your favor. So I went to a friend of mine, Chris Bender, worked for Warren Beatty and Craig Perry, who produced the American Pie films. And they were looking to do a horror film, so I took them this idea. And we worked on it for months and months and months. And, at first New Line had an issue with death being the killer, because it was, at the time, it was a unique concept. It's like, how do you can't show it, and how can people fight it? And we're like, that's the awesome part of it. It's never been done, and you can try to fight it, but you can't. But having worked at New Line was very, it's a very smart company, especially back in the old days, and it was very independent. They were all about market, branding and franchises. So I always joke that I've been kind of, molded by working there from the age of 19 to think franchise and marketing. So everything I write tends to be a franchise, and I've tried to balance the commercial viability of stuff and be creatively authentic so that I'm not just writing something that's an obvious, grab at a franchise, because I think when you do that, sometimes it turns out to be a horrible project, because it's like you're just obviously trying to set this up, but I in the back of my head, I always knew if I got fortunate enough to have the movie be a success, that it could spawn a franchise. And I definitely wrote it that way. It's always been written open-endedly. I did I wrote the original story, and I wrote the first draft of the script, and James Wong and Glenn Morgan came on and revamped the script as well. But the basic tenets are all still there, and we definitely had a franchise in mind from the beginning. We were very hopeful, and I was very excited to kind of write the story for the sequel as well, because I got to expand on the first film without completely just rehashing the formula. We got to tie in the two movies together to kind of show the broader implications of what happened in the first film to people that these characters from the first film didn't even know in the second one. So that was what was great for me about being able to work on part two as well.
Now, writing this type of movie, your villain was a little bit differently, and I guess you would have some trouble with this, meaning, you can't see death, you can't feel death. How do you film death? But he had almost the same feel of, dream, real life. You didn't know what was what. Would you say that you had, influenced by Nightmare on Elm Street?
Oh, I'm always. Yeah. I'll tell it super quickly. I was born in when I was 14, I saw the first Nightmare on Elm Street movie, and I wrote a prequel and sent it to Bob Shea. And this is, again, me, a little, country boy living in a trailer in Eastern Kentucky. And Bob Shea sends it back, and he says, we don't take unsolicited material. Bob Shea ran New Line at the time. And I wrote him back a letter, and I'm like, look, buddy, I've seen 3 New Line movies, and I've spent $4 on your staff, so I think you can take 5 minutes to read my story. And so he read it, and he got back to me, and we became like pen pals, me and him and his assistant, Joy Mann, who became like his second mother to me. She was a dear woman. She passed away a few years ago. But we stayed in touch from the age of 14 to 19 when I started working at New Line. So Nightmare on Elm Street is I've met Wes Craven. I've been so fortunate to meet him, and Heather Langenkamp, and like pretty much everybody involved in Nightmare on Elm Street except for Johnny Depp. He's a little harder to get around. But that movie is like the biggest. That movie hit me at like the time of my life where it pretty much rocked my world and has influenced everything that I've written since then.
I do have to say, Nightmare on Elm Street is probably still one of my favorite movies. But as you said, I have to ask this because our the left and right show, we have to tackle both sides of the topic. Would you say that you rather would have stayed lived in the country like Kentucky, or did you like the Hollywood lifestyle?
Well, the funny thing is I actually moved to New York first because I wanted to be I always joked I wanted to be the first biracial centerfold in Teen Beat magazine. That was my dream. That was the dream that was what I was aiming for when I was a kid growing up. And so I went to New York to act and got an internship and started doing a little acting there. But this was kind of back in the early 90s when non-traditional casting was not a big thing. And my agent told me I was an ethnic Michael J. Fox type. So she's like, well, if you rap or play basketball, I could cast you in a minute, but what to do with you? You know, she was basically telling me I was too white acting to play any ethnic roles, and then they canceled the Cosby Show. So when they did that, I was like, well, there goes my acting career, because that's the only show that I could be on. So that's when I got into writing. So, but I wanted to stay in New York. I had this, you know, having never been to Hollywood, I had this idea in my head about Hollywood, what Hollywood was like, and that it was full of phony people, and everybody was, you know, backstabbing and fake and blah, blah, blah. And I found out that there are a lot of those people here, like a lot of them, but you actually have to find them. Like, I refused to move to LA till after 9/11, actually, and I was downtown New York when that happened, and finally that took me up and kind of brought me out west. But you know, I moved out here. I was like, wow, I actually should have moved out here a lot sooner, because it really, I've been so fortunate to meet like most of the nicest people and the really creative people and hardworking people, and you really have to look for the phonies and the wannabes and the people that you kind of hear about that make you not want to come out to Hollywood.
Oh, I totally get you.
Jared.
So yeah, I always wanted to be in the film industry from the time I was a little. I couldn't get enough of it, but I always thought I'd be acting. But then once I got to New York and thought there was a creative community out there, I was like, I don't ever want to become one of those LA people. And then I moved out here, and I'm like, oh, you can just be yourself, and most people are. So.
Now, I have to ask you a question. From a writer's standpoint, I know as far as some of the Final Destinations and probably many of the other works you've done, you wrote the original draft of. Handing that over, to a film company to produce a film, and then getting to see that end result, what would you say? It doesn't even have to be with the Final Destination. Any movie that you've been involved with, what was the biggest surprise for you? The thing that you maybe didn't intend that came across the best as far as you were concerned?
That's a very interesting question. There are probably two things. I think it was funny when I was writing Tamara, but I didn't realize when I was writing it wasn't an intentional thing, that she didn't actually kill anybody. With her bare hands. Like, she was a killer, but she made everybody else kill themselves and each other. And this kind of goes back to Nightmare on Elm Street, which is all about, Freddy kind of getting in people's heads and exploiting their fears. And so I never intentionally set out to write a film where, the killer never physically killed somebody directly. Like, she sent other people to do her dirty work, and then they would, not spoiler, or, they would usually kill, they would usually get killed themselves. She actually never did that. So that was an interesting thing, that when I stepped back, I didn't write that intentionally.
That works out, though, in the...
Oh, go ahead. I'm sorry.
To me, that does totally make sense. That's I think the reason that society has feared Charles Manson for so many decades. It's the power to influence the kill rather than to just kill. Everyone has the power to kill.
Yes.
The power to influence others to kill. That's something to fear. That's a horror movie right there. What was the other thing you were going to say, Jeff?
The other thing, because you were talking about handing the script over to somebody, and I always give credit where credit is due, and it's certainly not always reciprocated in this industry. But in Final Destination, the whole Rube Goldberg device was actually came up. James Williams and Morgan came up with that idea, which I think actually really helped the film in a way, because it actually made people really start looking for death all around them. Because in my original version, even though the characters are pretty much the same, the story plays out the same, and a lot of people die, in similar ways. In my version, death, because it kind of messed up the first time, couldn't just come back and kill them. So it would psychologically mess with them all at Nightmare on Elm Street, and make them kill themselves. So, like in this movie, Alex's best friend Todd gets hung in the shower. He slips and gets hung in the shower. And in my original draft, he was feeling so guilty over some bad stuff that he'd done, that he rigged up a noose in the garage so that when his father came home and opened the garage, it hung him. So, he still got hung, but in my version, it was all more psychological based about some of the sins of his past that death exploited. So the Rube Goldberg thing for me was a very happy accident, because I think, even though I think the other version still is a great movie, I think the Rube Goldberg thing made the movie more universal, because people then just start looking for things around them when something falls over or they get behind a log truck. That makes people think.
Yeah, we were discussing. We were discussing right before we got you on that basically the Final Destination series was one big public service announcement for basically just, hey, stop doing stupid stuff and look around.
Yeah, we should start. There should be some campaign about that. We should see if we can get the stage to start using that as
or at least using the footage from it. That would be the great "Don't text and walk, don't text and drive" videos I would have ever seen.
That would have been awesome. Don't wear your camera on a roller coaster. Yeah, yeah. I don't think they'd go for that though.
Oh man,
it would be a great marketing device. That would be my marketing brain is going. That would be pretty awesome to do. Especially the don't text.
There you go.
Walk.
So, I guess in the future, right now, what do you aspire to, or what could be your ultimate goal working in the movie industry right now that you could achieve, in the next couple of years?
Well, I'm definitely moving more into producing and directing, and it's always interesting because I meet a lot of people who've always wanted to direct, and of course everybody, at some point you hear the joke that everybody in Hollywood wants to direct, but I really came to it very organically because I've been very involved in the development process of most of my films, and more involved than a lot of writers get to be, even though I hand stuff over, and a lot of times I have to make changes, especially when it's a work for hire. I've got to stay involved, and be on set for a lot of my films, and so I've got to see how the behind-the-scenes stuff works. So I know the movie business. I've just been in it since I was 19, and so I'm producing now, and I just directed my first short, called Good Samaritan. We just announced that we got into Fantasia, so we're premiering in Fantasia on the 28th, which is really exciting. And we're in a couple other festivals right now, and so I want to direct. I don't think I want to completely move into directing. I just I have stories and scripts of mine that I don't want to change because there's some projects I would have been able to sell if I'd have either made every character a teenager or really dumbed them down. And, it's almost like Final Destination was a hard sell. There's a couple other projects I have that have been kind of hard sells that I just don't think that the studio executives get it, and I think that audiences would get it. So those are the projects that I want to direct. So that's, the next couple of years, you're definitely going to see me, directing a feature, and I'm producing some projects as well. So I just want to take kind of more creative control and get some of the projects I'm really passionate about that I've written, or projects that I've read that other people have written, because I've just read so many great projects and scripts out there that just haven't gotten made, that I'm like, this is a great project and I want to get it made. So that's kind of my next plan of the next stage of my career is producing and directing, and probably doing some acting where I don't have to rap or play basketball.
I gotcha. All right, so we have a little segment we do in the last couple minutes with all our special guests. We're going to do a little thing called Playing Favorites.
Okay.
Playing Favorites.
So we do quick rapid fire questions at you. Just the first thing that comes to your mind, go with it.
All right, we're gonna start with an easy one. Again, first thing that enters your mind. Jeffrey Reddick, what is your favorite color?
Red.
Place to party.
My house.
All right, your favorite season?
Fall.
Time of day.
Nighttime.
Your least favorite movie?
Oh my gosh.
Favorites.
The remake of Friday the 13th, even though I love Travis Van Winkle, who was in it.
Place to eat.
McDonald's.
Your favorite job other than your own?
For some reason, I was thinking holding babies, so babysitting.
What's your favorite animal?
My favorite animal is a cat.
All right, your favorite musical artist?
My favorite musical artist, Dolly Parton.
All right, and what's your favorite radio show?
Your show.
That is the right answer, Jeffrey.
So yes, that was our segment, Playing Favorites.
Playing Favorites.
On the Left and Right Show.
Jeffrey, thank you so much for being a part of that. That's a first for us of a tradition we're trying to start. So you got to be our guinea pig, and thank you for that.
I was your first what?
You were the first person for this segment. We plan on incorporating this from now on, but we just want to thank you for being our guinea pig.
Awesome.
Do you have any last things you wanted to promote to our listeners?
No, you know what? Thank you, first of all, for the opportunity. I always love talking to anybody that will listen to me. And, like I said, I just tell people to either Facebook me or follow me on Twitter, just if they want to keep updates on my, what projects I have going on. I think my Twitter's Jeffrey A. I don't even know my own Twitter thing. I'm pretty easy to find on there, and Facebook. So yeah, I was just gonna say do that, and you can kind of keep up with me. Oh, it's Jeffrey A. Reddick. So that's my name at Twitter and on the Facebook as well. So.
All right, Left and Right listeners, check out Jeffrey A. Reddick on Twitter. And check out all of his movies. You can find him on Internet Movie Database. And thank you so much for calling in, Jeff.
Oh, my pleasure. Have a great rest of your weekend, guys.
You too.
All right. Take care.
All right, so that was our special guest of the night, Jeffrey Reddick, amazing writer, and we do hope he aspires to get his directorial debut very shortly. You can check out all Jeffrey's info on our website, theleftandraightshow.com. And, follow him on Twitter, Facebook, get to know him. He's a great guy. But we'll be right back after this vinyl cut break. Yeah. Here on the Left and Right Show. We'll be right back with your hosts,
Little Zach
and Robbery. See you shortly.
This is 1360 AM. WNJC. Washington Township, Philadelphia. Philadelphia's Renaissance radio station. Brought to you from Forsyth Broadcasting. Or listen to us at WNJCradio.com.